Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the deepest slash massive YouTube iceberg, specifically part 1 of the 6th tier. Like I said in my other videos, if this is being recommended to you and you haven't seen any of the previous parts, just know that my microphone quality is complete and total garbage up until about halfway through the first part of tier 3. Now, with that being said, let's get into it. We now descend into the deep, dark waters that lie below the iceberg, into the researcher tier. These users consume a lot of horror slash weird media on the platform, even more than the average enthusiasts, to the point that they know just about everything in most YouTube icebergs. As we approach the halfway point of the iceberg, we've finally left the light-hearted portion of it. The entries on this tier are much darker and more depraved than anything we've encountered on the iceberg so far, and for many of them, I would recommend viewer discretion if you are triggered by certain topics. Don't worry though, it's not all doom and gloom. There's still plenty of lighthearted creepypasta, horror videos, ARGs, and the like as well. So without any further ado, let's kick the researcher tier off with Interview with the Cannibal. This was an interview conducted by Vice News, uploaded to their official YouTube channel, in which they talk with a man named Issei Sagawa, who, as you could guess from the title, is a cannibal. In the video, he recounts his entire life story, and I'll give you a sort of summary of it here. In his early childhood, he was raised by a family who had more conservative views on lust. And he believes that it was during this time that his desires became twisted towards cannibalism. He first felt these desires toward a male classmate, but soon after this became primarily attracted to women. And he became attracted to specific body parts of the women that had a lot of fat on them and were meatier than other body parts like thighs and butt. But obviously not for the same reasons normal people are attracted to those body parts, and instead because it has more to consume on it. He also started developing a taste for foreign women, especially Western women, because he believed them to be taller and more beautiful than Japanese women. At one point, he met a blonde woman who he was so attracted to that he actually attempted to eat her. He snuck into her apartment and planned to beat her with a umbrella, knock her unconscious, and then cut her up with one of the knives in her kitchen and consume her butt, literally. But thankfully, she found him before he had a chance to hit her with the umbrella, and she screamed and called the police, and he was arrested. However, because at this point the police had no knowledge of his true cannibalistic desires, they simply ruled it an attempted R word, which this is probably one of the only cases where that's a good outcome for the convicted criminal. Eventually, when he was 28 years old, he left Tokyo and went to Paris, specifically to the Sorbonne University in Paris, where he was to study comparative literature. Though, while that was the intention that everyone else perceived him going to Paris for, his true intention was to eat a woman there. He lured a girl named Reen Hartfelt into his room and told her that he needed some recordings of someone reading German poetry. So she recorded these poems for him, and while she was distracted with that, he got a GUN and fired it at her, and she fell to the ground, now unalive. What makes this extra horrifying is that in the interview, he brings up pictures of his room in France, and he explains with detail where she was, where he was, where he hid the GUN, and he just describes it so casually without even a hint of remorse or shame or even the acknowledgement that what he did was bad in any way. He describes it casually as though he were just describing to where some casual objects that he'd use every day were. It really gives me the feeling that he is probably a psychopath, as he never really shows any sign of emotion other than lust throughout the entire interview. After she was unalived, he attempted to cut her body using a fruit knife, though this was not strong enough, and he ended up having to buy a curved meat knife. He even got lessons from a butcher prior to this on how to cut meat, who probably thought he was simply innocent and wanted to know how to cut animal meat, but in reality, he used his butchery skills on the woman. He first tried to eat her butt, and specifically the right side of her butt, because in his own words, the left side is closer to the heart, meaning there's more red fluids inside of it, which he is scared of, though I have a lot of trouble believing that. He said that he had to cut through multiple layers of not very good tasting yellow fat to get to the red, muscular flesh, which was what he actually wanted to eat. He doesn't really describe in detail the rest of how he ate her and the other actions he committed on her body, of a nature I'm sure you can guess. But photos of Reen's unalived body can be found on the internet. Her nose is completely smashed up, her jaw mangled with the sides of it almost torn away. All 4 of her limbs have been disconnected from the rest of her body, and the upper parts of the limbs have been skinned up and turned into these globs. Both of her breasts have been removed, and in their place lies massive craters of flesh. And her pelvis, as well as a long line stretching up through her stomach, have both been just so utterly eaten away at and mangled up and just ruined that if I showed you the picture without the rest of her body, you wouldn't even be able to tell that it was once a human's body. He also cut off several parts of her flesh and stuffed them in the fridge or freezer to prevent them from rotting in the summer heat, and would then eat them over time. And again, he describes all of this with not a hint of emotion in his voice, not a hint of remorse, barely even acknowledging the fact he committed such a heinous action. Eventually, the body grew too old and he had to dispose of it. He stuffed it into 2 bags, and he got a cab driver to take him to a lake. The cab driver, as he carried the bags out of the cab, felt how heavy they were and even joked to Issei that he must be carrying an unalived body in the bags. Issei then pushed the 2 bags down the hill towards the lake, and the way he describes how he got caught here is sort of confusing, but what I think was happening was that while he was pushing them, someone ended up finding a bag that was next to him that I guess he wasn't pushing in that moment, and they asked him if it was his. He said no because he didn't want to get caught. They opened it to find the contents and see if they could, see who the bag's contents belonged to from there, and obviously freaked out and screamed the moment they saw there was an unalive body in it. And so Issei ran away, and a few days later he was arrested. However, due to a lot of reasons, both because he committed the crime in France but was a Japanese citizen, because the French psychologist said he was clinically insane, and the Japanese psychologist said he was just had a personality disorder and didn't need treatment, just because of the general complication of these international crime situations, and probably because of national reasons, if we're being honest. I doubt Japan really wanted to associate themselves with the cannibal tourist, and France probably didn't either, and so it was sort of like a blame game between the 2 countries, though again, this is just my guess as to why he was never really convicted of his crimes. So, because of all these reasons, he just went back to Japan and he was fine. He had no legal punishments, no repercussions. He just was able to live the rest of his life perfectly fine. Granted, he would never really be able to have a job again, because not a normal job, because of, the fact that he ate someone. So cue the sensationalist media, which was the only way he could make money. He wrote biographies about himself, starred in movies about himself, interviewed various news companies including Vice News, created what I believe to be an erotic comic about his cannibalist incident for a magazine company, and created paintings, which he sold to people. He also received money from his parents. He wasted most of this money on extravagant vacations, and he even gathered a sort of a small group of friends to go traveling on these trips with 2 female members. Thankfully, no incident like the one in France happened, but it's still horrifying to think that these 2 women were friends with him for all these years and were just that close to danger and either never realized it or were okay with it. A lot of people in the comments echo this sentiment about being upset that this cannibal is living a better life than them. That this monster of a human, this monster that can barely even be called a human, to be honest. He threw away his humanity the moment he took another's, and he's living a better life than a lot of people, unfortunately, because of shitty legal systems and also shitty economic systems. But he did receive a little bit of karma towards the end of his life, as shortly after the Vice News interview was published, which was around a decade ago, he entered a state of needing to be bedbound, and he lived in this state for the rest of his life, unable to really do anything. And he lived like this until about a year ago when he was unalive thanks to complications due to pneumonia. So, at the very least, a little bit of justice was dealt to him. MyDarkJournal. This is one of the many ARGs set in the Slenderman multiverse, I guess. And it's less of an ARG on its own and more of like an accompanying piece to other ARGs that essentially sets up the backstory for this character called Victor, who's like a disciple of Slenderman that summoned him to go unalive German soldiers during that big war because they unalived his wife. And in exchange, he became a disciple of Slenderman and is now in his Slenderman's eternal servitude. MyDarkJournal is particularly notable amongst Slenderman ARGs because of the fact that it's from the perspective of someone who is actively trying to summon Slenderman and get on Slenderman's good side, as opposed to someone who's constantly running from and in danger because of Slenderman. Also, like fucking half of the ARGs I encountered on this iceberg already. This one has not been finished. It started like 10 years ago, but after 5 years, the uploads became really sparse with only one upload every couple months, sometimes with the channel going years without an upload. Jessie Slaughter. Jessie Slaughter is the online alias of a girl named Jessica Leonhardt. At 11 years old, she was accused of having an inappropriate relationship with the lead singer of the band Red Fluid on the dance floor. And yes, note my wording accused there, because the fucking animals on 4chan decided to blame the 11-year-old girl in this case and say that she was in the wrong as opposed to the fully grown singer of the band. Though in reality, no one was in the wrong because this accusation was completely made up. 4chaners decided to troll and harass Jessie over the alleged relationship, and Jessie fought back against them using a variety of comebacks, which just added fuel to the fire and made even more 4chaners want to partake in the harassment campaign. And eventually it reached the point where she sort of made a response video to all these harassers, in which she goes on a rant about them, a rant which includes the line, "If you can't stop hating, you know what? I'll pop a Glock in your mouth and make a brain slushy." Just a little reminder, she's 11 years old when she said this. But as you could imagine, this response simply made the hate even stronger, to the point where people started harassing her on Tumblr. People started trying to dox her, and eventually successfully did. And though nobody came to her house, they did hire prostitutes to go to the house. And several of the accounts that harassed her were also run by child diddlers, so to speak, or at least appeared that way based on their profiles and purposely made themselves look like child diddlers to, I guess, scare Jessie. The harassment eventually reached the point where Jessie and her father made a response video where they both just had a complete mental breakdown, especially Jessie's father, who went off on a long, anger-driven rant where he threatened anyone who harassed his daughter or who even thought about stepping near their house. So as you could imagine, this was what finally scared all of the 4chaners into no longer harassing Jessie. Just kidding, they took the piss out of the video. They made remixes of it on YouTube, websites dedicated to simply making fun of the video, and even went so far as to make some of the phrases the dad says in the video into slang terms. The most notable of these terms being "ya done goofed," which has pretty much just nestled itself into the English language, and remains a pretty commonly used phrase even 10 years after this whole ordeal happened. And worse than any of this, the video simply made 4chaners even more eager to harass this family than they were before. People started searching for Jessie Slaughter given PCP by her father, and so many people searched this that it became an autofill result whenever you open the Google search bar and type the first couple letters of that, making people think that Jessie's father had actually done that, and essentially spreading misinformation in an elaborate way, which several news organizations had to debunk. The harassment eventually got so bad that she had to be placed under police protection due to several of the people that were calling her talking about explicit images of her, which thankfully turned out to be false, but drew the police's attention still. After this, Jessie Slaughter sort of faded away from the cultural zeitgeist, and any developments in the story pretty much went silent for several months. That was until Jessie's father was arrested for having slapped her across the mouth in a heated argument, though he claims that she attacked him first, as though that somehow makes physically assaulting your child any better. Yeah, my teenage daughter attacked me, so I had no choice but to beat the shit out of her. Which led to people posting these admittedly kind of funny images of his mugshot with "Ya done goof" captioned over it. After this incident, Jessie then had to go to therapy and was eventually put in foster care where she was adopted by a new family. Shortly after this, her biological father suffered a heart attack at age 55, which resulted in him passing away. This was the last major event that really occurred in her life immediately following the controversy, as after that, things pretty much just completely went quiet. Up until around 2017, when she revealed that she had changed her name to Damien, and she also contracted a illness called fibromyalgia, which, quoting from nih.gov, is a chronic, long-lasting disorder that causes pain and tenderness throughout the body, as well as fatigue and trouble sleeping. silentdork/John is not alive. So, do you remember how I talked about Ben drowned in the third tier? And you remember how there's like the original creepypasta that everyone remembers, and then there's like the second part of the ARG that no one really gives a shit about? And then they like made a third part that was conclusion to the series like a decade later. Well, a group of fans of the Ben Drowned ARG got so impatient and tired of waiting for part 3, and, rightfully so, it came out a decade later, so they decided to create their own fanfiction ARG, I guess is how you would describe it, called John is Not Alive. Okay, it's actually a different word that starts with D and is 4 letters long, but, algorithm, I want this video to actually be recommended to people. And if you remember back in the Ben Drowned ARG, there was like the Moon Children cult that were obsessed with ascending people by sacrificing them, and that was how Ben came to be. Well, this ARG centers around a branched off like division of the cult called the Loughner Children. Yeah, very 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 easy to tell the difference between those two. Don't want to get confused there. And this is a highly interactive ARG where players could pretty much make decisions that the main character of the ARG, John, would go through. But the players failed, and that's why John was unalived within the first arc of the ARG. And so the rest of the ARG had to basically completely change direction to now being about Tyler, John's friend, and the players trying to keep Tyler alive. This is definitely not one of the most popular ARGs. There's barely anyone that's talking about it, but what fanbase does exist of it is extremely dedicated. There is a 19-part video series dissecting the events of this ARG in detail that's been going on for like 5 years and hasn't even finished catching up to I think the most recent part of the ARG. I actually can't even tell if this ARG has ended or not, so I'm gonna say the most recent part because I don't think it's ended. At least from my brief scan of their leviathan of a summary on the John is Unalived wiki, there doesn't really seem to be any satisfying ending or conclusion of any kind. But then, also, this ARG was primarily communicated to players through a website called LoughnarChildren.com, a website which has met the same fate as John, so to speak. So maybe it is actually concluded. And holy shit, if you thought that Ben Drowned was overly complicated, which, I just so happen to think it's a creepypasta about the Legend of Zelda, we didn't need to make it that detailed. Holy shit, you have seen nothing. On the official John is Unalived wiki, there is a section for characters, which is divided into 5 parts: Harbingers, Lunar Children, Moon Children, Astral Observatory, and other / unaffiliated, containing so many characters like the 4 Giants and Mr. D, the Helper, Bup, Moon Man, and many, many, many more. Yeah, I counted over 100 characters, which, seems like it's overdoing things a little much. One of the episodes on Internet Detectives, the YouTube channel that explains this whole mess of an ARG, has a video where they pretty much just solely go over like terminology of the John is Unalive universe. And I just want you to listen to a small snippet I've pulled here and tell me this doesn't sound absolutely insane. I watched the entire 19-part series and I still can barely tell you what the hell this ARG is even about. Like what, this started with The Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask? Can we bring that back? What does this have to do with that? I feel like this has nothing to do with that anymore. The only thing I kind of remember was, well, like the first arc, because it's like the simplest. And there's like a part where Tyler tries moving to Australia and gets kidnapped by his girlfriend, and they want to like take Tyler to Aspire in Ohio to ascend him. And I only remember that because Ohio, and I'm legally required to make a haha funny Ohio joke here. The joke, of course, being that I mentioned the word Ohio. It's very, very funny. You can tell. Honestly, with how little coverage this ARG gets, I'd love to make like a full deep dive on it, but it's just so overly complicated that I think I need the help of someone who is actually like partaking in this ARG as it unfolded to explain things in more detail. Oh yeah, and silentdork. The thing this entry is named after. I should probably explain that. Yeah, silentdork is just the main YouTube channel connected to the John is Unalive ARG. I mean, much like how there were a trillion characters, there are actually quite a few YouTube channels linked to this ARG, but silentdork is the main one. And also the one to gain the most notoriety outside of the John is Unalive ARG fan base. In fact, it's probably the most well-known thing from this entire ARG as a whole. V Third Eye. This was a semi-popular emo YouTuber around 10 years ago who had the worst hairstyle on the entire planet, who abused his audience and platform as a way of meeting up with a 15-year-old girl despite being in his 20s. He then encouraged her to get alcohol, despite her being under the drinking age in the country they were in, that being the UK. And not only that, but also pressured her into drinking so much alcohol that she became drunk and easily able to be taken advantage of. And then the two of them did the deed with one another. And though she technically consented to this, her being both underage and drunk means that this legally constitutes as Sagittary R-word. After these heinous actions, he then proceeded to, in his own words, lose everything, which actually just means he lost a large portion of his audience. As a consequence of these heinous actions, he ended up, in his own words, losing everything, which actually just means he lost a large portion of his audience. After this, he essentially reinvented his entire identity, becoming a psychedelics-obsessed hippie and partaking in poverty tourism around the world. He also changed his hairstyle so that it's somehow even worse, and eventually started uploading to TikTok, where his audience, full of people that unfortunately don't know about his crimes of the past, is steadily increasing. He has occasionally brought up in some of his videos his, problematic past, but he does so in a way that makes Jake Paul's apology look like a masterpiece, as he basically just sweeps it under the rug and says, "You see, I just didn't know a whole lot about, doing the deed between two people because I was raised by Mormons that didn't teach me about that thing. And this was the first time I was really able to express myself on that level. And so I just didn't know what I was doing. Like, guys, come on." And while I do have sympathy for this guy being raised by Mormons, plenty of other people were raised by Mormons, and most of them don't commit Sagittary R word. Now, while that whole Sagittary R word thing is easily the worst thing he's done, I'd just like to add a couple little footnotes here I found out about him, just to really nail in how terrible of a person he is. See, he likes complaining about how YouTube and the government are censoring him. Yeah, gee, buddy, I wonder why. It's not like your entire channel is based off of psychedelic substances, huh? And he also tweeted out an image of him with his dreadlock hairstyle saying, "2 years of cultural appropriating. Cyber 8. Cyber 8 is another surreal 3D animator, similar to Pamtree or Andy Wilson. So you may ask, what separates him from these other surreal 3D animators? Well, he really likes making edgy jokes about a certain American organization that's name is 3 letters long, with all 3 letters being the same, who are known for wearing white hoods, and jokes about the German military between 1939 to 1945. And he makes these jokes frequently enough that I have my suspicions as to whether they're simply jokes. I mean, they're not even really jokes. They're just him bringing those two topics up. Like he added a third K to the name of the Animal Crossing character KK Slider. Or he did a parody of the Inspector Gadget Brown Bricks sketch, but Inspector Gadget just rambles on and on about a book written by a certain Austrian painter. Any doubts I had in my mind about this guy just full on being, and not just simply making AG jokes, were pretty much squashed when I watched some of his most recently uploaded videos, which are just full on, unadulterated anti Semitic ramblings, with the only hint of something you could use to justify this as just a joke being the fact that one of these two videos is a parody of the Look Guys Look Wario meme. It seems like as YouTube's restrictions on what can and can't be in content got stricter and stricter, Cyber8 started uploading less and less, with most of his videos being uploaded in 2017. And a large number of his videos were also deleted. I didn't really bother trying to find every single one of them because for the most part they're more of the same. But I did find one of them, which was like a parody of Arthur, interesting, as in that one he uses images of real life animals that are decaying after one of the Arthur characters does a bad thing in a school that results in the unalivement of anthropomorphic animal people that correspond to these decaying animals he shows on screen. So yeah, basically he's just a really disgusting person. Oh yeah, and I should also probably mention he also makes YouTube poops in addition to his 3D animations and short songs as well. Kcriss Li. So heads up, this entry talks about a certain event that happened in 2020 that was pretty big and affected the entire world. And I'm not sure whether I'm able to say the name of that thing on YouTube or not. Because it used to be that you couldn't, but then I think it was that you could. I don't know. I'm just going to play it safe here and refer to it as The Thing. So Kcriss Li was this vlogger slash reporter who drove around Wuhan, China, where the thing started in, and he uncovered sort of how the government was dealing with the outbreak of the thing, and especially areas where it was failing to do a proper job of dealing with the thing. But after he uploaded a video exposing how they were dealing with this situation involving migrant workers, the police started chasing him down, and he had a live stream where he drove away from them and hid inside of his apartment under a bed silently for several hours, with the police knocking at his door during several parts of it. The live stream ended when the police burst into his apartment and arrested him. After that, his channel went silent for 2 months. After which, he uploaded a video where he stood in front of a white wall and basically said, "Hey guys, my investigations were wrong. I shouldn't have done that. I love the government. Bye." With many people thinking that this video was scripted and that he was being forced to say these things or coerced into saying these things, as they obviously go against his viewpoints prior to him being arrested. Some people also say that he sounds like he's reading off a script, but I don't really feel like there's any way for an English speaker who doesn't have any understanding of how Chinese is pronounced to really tell whether someone sounds like they're scripted, especially considering how tonally variant Chinese is as a language. He hasn't uploaded anything to his YouTube channel after that, and because of this, many people theorize that he had either been sent to prison or executed by the government. However, these theories were proven to be false. Well, the execution theory was proven to be false. The prison theory is still possible, but if it is true, then he didn't spend a lot of time in prison. As 8 months ago, as of recording this, Radio Free Asia uploaded an interview with Kcriss Li in which he says that he is now in a university in New York and studies artificial intelligence and how it's used by people because he's worried about how it would be used by the Chinese government. And he, of course, expresses many of the same sentiments he had in his videos prior to the live stream, thus confirming that that last video he uploaded on his channel was in some way scripted, and not what he actually believes. Though sadly, at this point, this topic had lost relevancy, so a lot of the people who were invested in this story when those initial videos on his YouTube channel had come out never really got closure that he's both still alive and now out of a country that he hates. Lastly, I want to point out that the first video uploaded to Kcriss Li's YouTube channel was uploaded on February 11th of 2020, and the live stream was uploaded on February 26th of 2020. Meaning that unless there were like previous videos that this guy made that he or someone else deleted or he was made to delete or something like that, meaning that he only uploaded videos for what, a little over 2 weeks before he got arrested? Combine that with his high production value from his first video, both in terms of how well he's able to film things and in terms of his translation team and ability to make nearly perfect closed captions, or what I at least are assume are pretty accurate closed captions, meaning that he was either considered like a really big threat from day one, and that was why he ended up getting arrested so soon, or the entirety of his channel was like a psyop of some kind, either constructed by him or someone else. Webcam video from. There used to be a feature on YouTube that allowed you to record something with a webcam and then upload that recording directly to YouTube, instead of having to upload a file from somewhere else. Now, whenever you did this, the default name of this video would be webcam video from, followed by the date of whenever that video was uploaded. People who didn't really understand how to use files, and much less how to then transfer those files to YouTube to upload them as YouTube videos, now had a much easier way of being able to upload videos. And now, what demographic of people would that be that don't really understand how to use files? That's right, children. And so these children would upload videos of themselves, usually pretty innocent videos that weren't intended to be anything sinister. But being kids, they, for whatever reason, would not really change the titles of these videos and would just leave them as webcam video from, followed by the date. And then really creepy people would go to these videos, would make creepy comments on them and like them, and this would push them in upwards in the algorithm. And so, because of this, whenever you search the words webcam video from, you would be bombarded with these webcam video from videos of children. And not only that, but you'd be especially bombarded with the worst of these videos, like videos of these children doing gymnastics or wearing revealing clothing, as those would be the ones that these monsters would flock to the most. Thankfully, Pyrocynical brought light to this issue, and it seems like since then, YouTube has patched this feature, and searching the term webcam video from on YouTube now just brings you videos of how to use webcams and stuff like that. Though, unfortunately, while researching this topic, I did find a way to bypass this that's unfortunately pretty easy, but I don't want to say what that feature is, since one, I don't want anyone to know about it and use that feature, and I think it would be irresponsible of me to tell people who would use that feature how to use it. And two, positive exposure to this method that could result in it getting removed, I think is unlikely, at least through me bringing exposure to it, as I'm a pretty small creator. And even if I was a big creator, I highly doubt anyone would actually listen, because you know how companies are. Lastly, I want to say that not every video that starts with webcam video from inherently involves children. As you can see on screen, I'm including like a lot of random videos that all just happen to have webcam video from as the title, which are significantly more innocent than those videos involving children. While these videos do exist, they are the minority amongst the webcam video from videos. I'm simply showing them on screen because it feels gross to show what this entry is actually referring to. David Sartison and David G. Sartison. David Sartison was a man who uploaded his first YouTube video in January of 2018. Ever since then, he uploaded at least 6 videos a day on both his main channel and his secondary channel, David G. Sartison, combined. These videos were all low-quality phone recordings of various TV shows being played on, well, a TV, and they're all simply labeled the title of the show and then the date that the video was uploaded. There are over 8,000 videos on David Sartison's channel and over 3,000 videos on David G. Sartison. However, as these videos go on, they start to get darker. For the first couple months of him filming these videos, he appears to be filming them from his room. However, eventually it appears as though he's filming from a hospital bed instead. And the more he films from this hospital bed, the shakier his hands become, and the shakier the view of the TV screen becomes as a result. His hands get shakier and shakier over time, and eventually he transfers to a new hospital room. And unfortunately, sometime around November of 2019, I don't know when exactly because the video has been deleted, but unfortunately, since whenever this date is, he stopped uploading videos on both of his channels. And the YouTuber Nick Crowley did research and found a patient named David G. Sartison, who was born in 1966 and passed away in 2019, who is under the care of a hospital called St. Vincent's, who wrote a memoriam about him. Sometime after the passing of David G. Sartison, his main YouTube channel was deleted along with every video on it, probably by either a copyright company because almost all the videos are just recordings of various TV shows, or by his family because someone was like doing something disrespectful in the comments, or they just didn't want to keep the channel around as like a reminder of him or something. I don't know. However, his second channel, David G. Sartison, still exists. Ayuwoki dancing on stairs. In 2009, someone purchased a lifelike Elvis animatronic and repurposed it to look like Michael Jackson, post all the surgeries and skin bleachings, which makes it look unintentionally terrifying. I mean, Michael Jackson already looked terrifying post surgeries and skin bleaching, but this animatronic looked especially uncanny and disturbing. And they were fully aware of this as they uploaded a YouTube video showcasing this new animatronic called My Ghoul Jackson. Then, in 2019, interest in Michael Jackson began sort of resurging thanks to the documentary Leaving Neverland. Because of this, the Spanish speaking side of the internet created this sort of half hearted creepypasta about Michael Jackson that was like a kind of parody of creepypastas as a whole, called the Ayuwoki, with the word Ayuwoki itself being a play on the phrase "Are you okay?", a lyric from the song Smooth Criminal by Michael Jackson. And they basically began like writing these horror stories about how the Ayuwoki, which was this Michael Jackson animatronic, would appear in your night and go hee hee when you least expect it. um and there were horror games made about it, memes made about it. And there was one YouTuber who expanded this whole Ayuwoki mythos by putting on a like Michael Jackson mask to make themselves look like the Ayuwoki, and then moving their like arms to be within their shirt so it looks like they didn't have any arms and like they were just a leg, just a pair of legs and a face, and then they danced around on a staircase. And then they sped it up, and in the background added the Lavender Town theme from Pokemon Red and Blue, with he continually looping on top of it, occasionally interrupted by a text-to-speech voice saying Ayuwoki. Which, you know, some people found this video scary, but I think this entire like Ayuwoki thing was far more so intended to be a parody of creepypastas than it was intended to be an actual creepypasta. And I think this Ayuwoki dancing on staircase video definitely falls into that. Also, Mexican parents that didn't really understand the internet made this into like the Mexican version of the Momo trend where they freaked out about like kids doing terrible things because of it with no proof. Which hilariously meant that police had to release a report saying that the Ayuwoki was not real. The country wasted official federal resources to make a statement saying an animatronic Michael Jackson won't come into your room at night and say hee hee. TryGF/tryfg. In 2019, a anonymous 4chaner created a post where they talked about how they were like bored and started searching random, basically keyboard smashed phrases in YouTube's search bar. And they ended up with a phrase that was spelled something similar to trygf, and found a bunch of really unnerving YouTube videos titled trygf. And then shortly after this, a Reddit post which said basically the same thing, with the only difference being that they actually searched for trygf and not just something similar to it. A detail minor enough that I think that these two are probably the same, made by the same person, and they just misremembered one of the details when they made the second post. The Redditor, however, went more in depth and ended up discovering more obscure and more disturbing videos, including one where it looks like someone's face has been ripped off, though it's very obviously fake, but for some reason they thought it was real. He also discovered a playlist called Super Pelzer TV, which contained many videos that were similar to Elsagate in the sense that they used a lot of Elsagate characters in ways that are not exactly child friendly, but they were more just like blatantly disturbing horror content than the usual kind of Elsagate disturbing, twisted fantasies targeted at children kind of content. And this playlist was created by a YouTube channel whose name was seemingly gibberish, but I'll get back to that in a minute. And it featured videos from both that channel and several other channels that were seemingly related. So around this point into the investigation of this whole trygf thing, it was discovered that this was actually an ARG, and one that had started back in 2017 as a means of parodying Elsagate, and hence was created when Elsagate was at its peak. But it was a relatively small ARG that hadn't gotten a lot of attention until the Reddit and 4chan posts unintentionally found it by just searching for tryfg on accident. The ARG started with a commenter called Stuart Silverson, who commented these seemingly gibberish comments on random Elsagate videos that had been covered by H3H3. But when you decoded this gibberish, you would actually get messages talking about following the white rabbit that led to a Twitter account with a bunch of like codes and ciphers tweeted out and plastered all over it. And as the players of this ARG uncovered and solved these codes more and more, they revealed more and more of the story about how all the people making these videos and these secret messages in universe were the Finders Cult. Now, the Finders Cult were a real-life cult and child trafficking ring, whose leader was called the Game Caller, which the name of that YouTube channel that organized the Super Pelzer TV list can actually be decoded to say, or spell, I guess. And personally, I think it is a little bit in poor taste to use an actual child trafficking ring for your ARG. But it's from these codes on this Twitter profile that players were supposed to be able to access the Super Pelzer TV and all the channels related to it, instead of coming across that first by the sheer happenstance of accidentally searching trygf or tryfg. One of the videos in this Super Pelzer TV playlist, titled Feet Omen Unexcite GX, has a URL in it leading to a website called excitementfunzone.xyz, which doesn't exist anymore, but when it did exist, it was littered with like clip art of various different Elsagate characters and just general Elsagate imagery. But as you travel deeper into the website and go through different versions of the web page, I don't know what the technical term for it is, you start encountering more and more disturbing imagery, including glitchy symbols and mutilated bodies, and you start encountering links that both lead you to various disturbing videos uploaded by several of the YouTube channels involved in this ARG that are designed to look like snuff films. And one of these links even led to another YouTube channel that wasn't in the Super Pelzer TV playlist at all, called The Amazing Cult of Spider-Man, which is like a 17-part Flash animation series where all the characters are voiced in this disturbing voice-to-text way that, to be honest, I'm not entirely sure what it has to do with the rest of the ARG. I mean, I obviously see how, like, a fake Spider-Man cartoon is related to the Elsagate child trafficking ring cult, but I mean, I don't know how that really linked back to anything else, like, in terms of the actual mechanics of the ARG, other than it just being a disturbing little cherry on top of the cake. But on the website, the holy grail of the things found there was a downloadable file that was an emulated version of a ROM hack for the game Friday the 13th. And this ROM hack reskinned the player character to be a child and reskinned the enemies to be Elsagate characters like Elsa, the Joker, Spider Man, so on and so forth. And it was called Return to West Pelzer. And so essentially in this game, you're playing as a victim of the cult trying to escape from it, which I've got to say is one of like the most creative ways to end an ARG. And yeah, that is the end. Beating that game is the end of the ARG. Ever since this ARG resurged in popularity thanks to the 2 posts from Reddit and 4chan, people have been like creating disturbing memes and edgy art projects and just general shock videos and titling them tryfg or putting tryfg in the tags or as a hashtag in the description. And the result is now when you search tryfg, in addition to the Super Pelzer TV videos, you also get just a bunch of this garbage, and it's really reminiscent to searching for full stop punctuation. Weirdest video you will ever see, guaranteed. This is a scene from the movie Funky Forest: The First Contact, which is a surreal Japanese movie. Pretty much everything I look up about this movie says that there isn't really a coherent plot to it. It's just kind of nonsensical sketches that happen to feature the same characters. But while I may not be able to give you a summary of the movie itself, I can give you a summary of this specific scene. There's like this guy, and he's in a chair, and his big red balls fall out beneath a hole in the chair. And so this guy starts squeezing his balls, and he starts lactating from his elongated flesh tubes on his breasts. And he starts squirting out his milk at this girl, who then bats the milk away with a tennis racket. And then he starts pulling out and throwing these parasites at the girl, which she starts batting away. But then one of them like attaches its mouth to her armpit and starts sucking away at her red fluids. So they call a doctor, who pulls away the outer coating of the parasite, and inside of it is this shrunken down human with tiny useless arms, a real like human face photoshopped onto it that's connected to its proboscis that's attached to the girl, and then another tube at his lower body. And the doctor like insults him and calls him like a midget and a child diddler. And then he starts squeezing the creature's stomach, causing white fluids to begin flying out of the lower tube. And then the doctor pulls away the lower tube and reveals a name stamp inside, which he pulls out, stamps it onto a piece of paper, and it's like a common Japanese name. And then he gets mad that the creature is such a common Japanese name and then rips him off the girl. GoAnimatte community and Caillou gets grounded videos. This is one of the weirdest rabbit holes of YouTube content in existence. For those who don't know, GoAnimatte is this quote unquote animation program, though it's less animation and more like a really advanced version of PowerPoint. Like, it has pre-made characters and pre-made animations, and you can stitch these together into something new, but you can't really create animations of your own. And it all just looks like a budgeted version of Family Guy, even though Family Guy already looks budgeted to begin with. So you may be wondering, what is Caillou Gets Grounded, and why is it worthy of being on this iceberg? Caillou Gets Grounded is a series of videos that originated from Brian Gets Grounded, a video made back in 2014, which was a simplistic video about a kid who disobeys his parents and then gets grounded. And it spawned this community that I can only imagine crawled forth from the pits of hell itself to create these videos that all involve Caillou, though they sometimes involve Dora or other characters from children's shows, but it's usually Caillou, who perform some sort of action worthy of being punished, an action that can range from anything from as minor as saying a swear word in front of his parents to something as extreme as mass unalivement, and in turn for committing this action, he ends up getting grounded at the end of the video, or punished in some other way. Some people have theorized that these videos are created as, like, a way of expressing anger towards Caillou because he's one of the most hated characters of all time, if we're being honest. And others have theorized that this is sort of like an Elsa Gate style form of fetish videos, as the punishment that Caillou and the other main characters undergo oftentimes can become very, well, fetishy in nature. And these videos pretty much all look like they were either made by some creepy 40-year-old or a child with an underdeveloped brain, and no in between. So it's either some creepy old man who's enacting their fetishes through these Caillou Gets Grounded videos, or some kid who doesn't really fully understand that what the context surrounding the punishments they give to Caillou are, and then uploads these Caillou Gets Grounded videos without fully realizing that there are people who are. The weirdest thing about these videos is the fact that there's like a fandom surrounding them. Like there's Wikipedias dedicated to documenting Caillou Gets Grounded. You know, despite the fact that, like, there is not a single person who has not left their mother's womb that doesn't watch these videos for non-fetishistic reasons. Thankfully, these videos have mostly died out in the 2020s as a result of GoAnimatte, the company trying to separate itself from these videos and basically turning into a completely different studio that now caters to corporate art styles and corporate marketing. While the original GoAnimatte art style and program only really exists through, like, Chrome extensions or unofficial recreations of the program, and thus it's much harder to create Caillou Gets Grounded videos. Titannica. I believe that this entry refers to a video called Mr. Show, Titannica Visits a Fan. And for those who don't know, Mr. Show is a sketch comedy show, and this video is a re-uploaded sketch from that show. The sketch centers around a metal band called Titannica, visiting a child in a hospital who's one of their biggest fans. And holy shit, is one of those band members Saul Goodman from the TV shows Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul? Yeah, so for those who had no idea what Mr. Show was before this video, and that would include me before I did research for this video, had Bob Odenkirk and David Cross as the main actors of the show. Bob Odenkirk being the actor who plays Saul Goodman. And I probably should have said that at the start of this entry when I first mentioned that this was a sketch from Mr. Show, but then I wouldn't get to make my funny Saul Goodman reference. So Titannica is here to see this kid in the hospital who attempted to commit self-gamend by jumping into a vat of acid, but failed and is still alive. So the band goes up to the bed that the kid is in, and the kid's like, "I'm your biggest fan, I even listened to your song. Try to commit self-endgame right before I did it." And then the band members lift the blanket off of the kid, only to reveal that his body, as a result of the acid, is just this shriveled up collection of, like, sausage sticks, with the head being the only unaffected part, which of course freaks the band members out. And it's this part of the video that is responsible for it being perceived as disturbing by some people and humorous by others. And then the band agrees to take him on tour and they write a new song called Try Again. And this entire sketch being centered around self-gamend is actually foreshadowing for Better Call Saul. Bravo, Vince. Also, none of you can get mad at me for spoiling the show because the self-gamend is in, like, the TV ratings of the show, so you should already know that it happens at some point. The Crow and the Raven. This is an animation that is dark, both metaphorically and literally, and is accompanied by a text-to-speech poem. The video opens with a view of some trees, on one of which a silhouette of a person is hanging. Following this, a fat, pudgy crow is quote-unquote born, a crow who is heavily implied by the poem to be us, or some metaphorical representation of us. The raven then appears before the crow, but they do not look like a raven and instead look like a feathered human female with long raven-like wings. And also I can't show them on YouTube. They then hand a fruit down to the crow and feed it to them, but the fruit is bland and tasteless, so the crow literally bites at the hand that feeds it, ripping the hand off of the arm of the raven, who doesn't seem to notice and flies away. The crow then freaks out and, disassembles itself. Then the raven flies down into a coffin and sleeps in it, and the camera zooms out to reveal that the coffin is buried deep within a tunnel. Finally, the video cuts back to the original view of the trees at the start of the video, and the hung silhouette falls from the tree, lands on the ground, gets up, and walks away before the video ends. This video is obviously very up to interpretation, and to be honest, I'm not even entirely sure if the creator of the video fully knows what it is about, as he pinned a comment that has a particular theory or interpretation of the video, saying that it's his favorite, but not outright confirming or denying it. This interpretation is, in my understanding, we are the crow wanting fruit, more and more fruit, when really the fruit is tasteless, and the raven, the other crow, bigger but equal to us, is the power, the force that controls us, the system, and we want more fruit. And when we see that the fruit is tasteless, when we realize that we are being fed cardboard, which does not fill us or satisfy us, we bite the hand of the greater crow, we rebel, we blame the system for deceiving us, but in the end, we are the ones torn apart, since the greater crow has more power than us. It has been fattening and fattening us, and we have been complicit in our own misfortune. But the force of change, of rebellion, resides in us. It is not enough to bite the hand of the system. We must tear it to pieces, or we will be the ones torn to pieces. And while I kind of like this interpretation, it doesn't really explain the silhouette falling to the ground and getting up at the end. I don't know, feel free to make your own interpretations. There isn't really enough for me to summarize or add to it in any way. TAKO Studio. Note that this is spelled O space taco, not otaku. So he is an animator who uploaded his animations to a variety of websites, including YouTube, and then he got arrested for human trafficking on April 25th, 2019. He was arrested due to human trafficking and no assault towards a 12-year-old girl, along with 2 other people. But this didn't become public until someone hacked into his Twitter account 2 years later. And yes, I just paraphrased from the Wikitubia article on him. But there isn't really a whole lot of information on the actual arrest, so Penampakkan tuydul daerah BOGOR. This is a YouTube video, the title of which roughly translates to The Weird Creature Small Goblin Toil from BOGOR, Indonesia. BOGOR, Indonesia is a real place where this video was most likely recorded, and toils are creatures from Indonesian folklore that are essentially a cross between a zombie baby and goblins. Obviously, I'm simplifying it down for the purposes of this video, but this video claims to be a sighting of a toil that the creator of the video just happened to spot while recording his friends playing the guitar. It's not a very convincing sighting, as it's recorded in a whole 2 pixels, and everyone just looks like a black silhouette, including the toil. And the result of this is just the toil just looks like another human that the creator of the video got to crawl around, which he probably was. So many of the comments are just making fun of the low quality of the video. The top comment, aside from the one pinned by the creator, is, "Was this filmed on a spoon?" You know, if I had a nickel for every time one of the videos on this iceberg was an Indonesian video that's a sighting of some creature from Indonesian folklore and is extremely low quality, and it's pretty much impossible to make out anything that happens in the video, then I'd have 2 nickels, which isn't that much, but it's weird that it happened twice. Joel Faviere. This is a former metalcore artist who both created his own music and was briefly a member of the band Get Scared. In 2017, he was arrested for possession of cheese pizza and promotion of the exploitation of children. Kelli Stapleton. Kelli Stapleton was the mother of 2 children, Ashley Stapleton and Isabella Izzy Stapleton. Kelli owned a YouTube channel on which she would post various videos just documenting her family. She wasn't really like a vlogging channel, she was mostly just like an ordinary woman who happened to upload videos to YouTube. Izzy suffered from a severe case of autism and was prone to violent outbursts, particularly against her mother, with these outbursts getting so bad that at times she could scratch and scar her mother, and this has led many people to theorize that Kelli was abusive towards Izzy. Kelli's husband was work obsessed and neglectful and barely offered any help towards Kelli in the raising of her daughters. And the US healthcare system is the US healthcare system and provided little to no actual aid, either mentally or physically, towards Kelli or Izzy or any of the family. Eventually, Kelli's mental state deteriorated to such a point that she did something heinous and unforgivable. She drove out into the forest with Izzy for what Izzy believed would be a hike. She had 2 charcoal grills loaded up inside of her van. She locked herself and Izzy in the car with both of the grills running, causing both of them to slowly suffocate from the carbon monoxide in an attempt to unalive both of them. However, fortunately, they were both saved by paramedics. Kelli was rescued quickly, but Izzy fell into a coma for several days, which she did thankfully eventually wake from, but there was the possibility that she could have had permanent brain damage inflicted upon her. After this attempt on both of their lives, Kelli made a statement on the matter, saying that I was excited because before noon we would arrive in heaven, which sounds to me like one of 3 things is going on here. Either A, her mental state had deteriorated so much that she had just completely lost it and become completely delusional and genuinely didn't have any grasp on what she was doing in that moment. 2, she had completely made this whole bit of the story up to make people more sympathetic for her. Or 3, she was using illicit substances. There's no real reports of her having used illicit substances in anything I found, so I highly doubt that this one is true, but if she did do them, I can definitely see those substances playing a part in what happened in the car and in her thinking that she wasn't doing anything wrong and was just bringing them to heaven. After that, Kelli lost custody of her kids and was sentenced to jail for 10 to 22 years. Both of her children are now being raised by her aunt, and Izzy continues to have violent outbursts, now targeted primarily at her sister. She then appeared on Dr. Phil, which, it's Dr. Phil, shitty sensationalization of the entire situation. And the Dr. Phil episode was accused of trying to side too hard with the parent, and trying too hard to make her actions seem excusable. Exarubia, or Exarubwana, I guess. Exarubwana, I don't know, is a depressed alcoholic YouTuber who began creating philosophical videos to combat these feelings of depression he had, which is kind of funny because just looking at the titles of these videos makes me somewhat existentially depressed. Yeah, such great video titles as "You Will Never Do Anything Important," and videos on stuff like why we're so small and insignificant in the universe. Yeah, real happy, non-depressing stuff there. I don't know, the people who watch these videos say that they are actually uplifting from what I've seen. I don't really want to watch them because this entry isn't really about his actual content. No, what we're specifically talking about, this entry specifically concerns Project A, and trigger warning for R word here. If you're triggered by that, then please skip ahead to the next chapter / entry of the video. So Project A, Experiment A was an experiment conducted by Exarubia, created to try and prove the existence of the pseudoscience known as synchronicities. Now, this pseudoscience is the idea that there are no coincidences and that every coincidence has some sort of greater meaning in the grand scheme of the universe. And to be clear here, I don't really care if you believe in synchronicities, so long as you don't try to pass it off as an actual science. Because the problem here is not that he believes in synchronicities or doesn't believe in them or whatever. The problem is the experiment itself. He preyed on an autistic woman named Pike Rolfs, who goes by Pi for short, lied to her about working for a company called Surin, and basically tricked her into working on this experiment for him, and then proceeded to consistently lie to, manipulate, and gaslight her into believing that any little thing that happened in her life was a synchronicity of some kind, to the point where this started horribly affecting her life and causing her to have panic attacks and mental breakdowns as a result. And she eventually entered a state of depression and began having self-game end thoughts, to which Exubria decided it was the best course of action to then send her videos talking about self-game end, and not like positive ones. Like, this all just genuinely sounds like something like the villain of a horror movie would do, not like a real person. This is beyond horrific. And it somehow gets worse. One day, the two of them met up on a trip, and he allegedly committed R-word on her. He then tried to lure her back into his, hotel room by saying that he was going to apologize to her, and then did it again. And while this was happening, she was on several substances and medications, so he used that to his advantage to manipulate her further. And because of this, she also does not remember a lot of what happened during this event, but he sure does, because after the event, he in detail told her what he did to her. But she was bleeding heavily after the fact, and one of the things she does remember from the events were that the second time it happened, he was actively being turned on by her crying. After this, she had depression and more self-game and thoughts, and Exrubia tried his best to hide this and spread a bunch of lies about her being like some crazed fan that was stalking him, which is just fucking insane because they first met up when she was way more popular than him. Now, I also want to say none of this has been proven in court yet, so as of now, all of this is alleged. And if I've learned anything from the quite allegations, it's no matter how convincing a victim's story sounds, people should never make judgments based off of their emotions until a more authoritative source can confirm or deny the accusations. I am definitely leaning towards believing her accusations, but he is still innocent until proven guilty, and all of this is still alleged. And also, I'm just some fucking moron who's talking about this because it appeared on a YouTube iceberg. There's definitely people with more informed opinions on this you can look at and watch the videos of. Human Being 15. There used to be a YouTube channel called Human Being 151. This YouTube channel seemed to be obsessed with the rapper P. Diddy. His name was spammed in the title, description, and tags of nearly every video the guy made, alongside messages talking about how P. Diddy needed to check his MySpace inbox for an important message. The most infamous of these videos is one in which he walks throughout his house, which is littered with cardboard boxes, journals, and notebooks. And every time he opens one of these journals or notebooks, the phrase, "Brother Diddy, please accept," would appear written in cursive on every page he flipped through, with it being in the exact same position each time he flipped it. Though, of course, he only opens a small handful of the journals, so the rest are probably empty. There are also notes on the walls, telling P. Diddy to look at how much hard work Human Being has done for him. Eventually, this YouTube account would be terminated due to violating YouTube's terms of service. Following this, the YouTube channel Human Being 15 was created, which re-uploaded the video with all the cardboard boxes and journals under the new title 010. Now, despite what this looks like, this Human Being channel is not actually run by a stalker of P. Diddy or anything like that. No, you see, in the early days of YouTube, YouTube's tag system was much easier to exploit. And so he did that by just mentioning one celebrity that was really popular as much as possible throughout several of his videos. And it's likely for this reason that his channel got terminated for violating YouTube's terms of service. And this wasn't the only way he tried to exploit the YouTube algorithm. He also created several sock puppet channels who all used profile pictures that were like pictures of attractive women in mildly seductive poses or revealing clothing or something, and then had them create several videos that were all tributes to him. And by him, I mean Emil, last name varies depending on what account you're looking at. And to this very day, he still continues to use these exploitative methods to try and get himself followers, not just on YouTube, but on multiple other platforms, which doesn't really seem to be working out super well. For someone who doesn't really make any real content, he definitely has a large amount of followers, but it's not enough to really be like worth anything unless he's doing some sort of scam that I don't know about. I mean, maybe he's just doing it for his own ego. That could also be possible. Or maybe he's trying to get like a number of followers and then sell his account. Who knows? Now, this explanation still leaves one question behind. Why did he go to the effort of writing that message for P. Diddy in all of those journals and buying all the empty journals? And I think the reason for that is because people started to notice his channel and thought that he was stalking P. Diddy and was like insane or something. And seeing his chance to grab his 15 minutes of fame, he capitalized on that by creating this video that makes him actually look like a P. Diddy stalker. And, well, it kind of worked, as that is the main thing he's known for now. Though it wasn't enough to make him become like a successful e-celeb or whatever he was ultimately hoping for. Court K. This is a YouTube channel which features 3 women, one of which being the titular K, talking about various topics, including medicine and anatomy, Chinese politics, and pseudoscientific conspiracy theories that relate to like the universe and or the earth being living beings and global warming being a result of like a respiratory infection that these living beings have, I think is the best way I could describe it. The description of their YouTube channel reads, "Our research focuses on human life. Our antenna, however, has no boundary. If life molecules start in space, the entire universe will be brought into the field of our vision. Science demands factual evidence. We take it further. It is our belief that we live in a God's universe. Anything less than a fact is a blasphemy. We are God's loyal servants. We are the people chosen by God in the 21st century. Our works are promoted by God. If you find your work that is assimilated into our project, it means that God has used you and recognized your talent. It is always a great honor when God finds us useful. Our work is freely available for that reason as well. While we appreciate the freedom, we know it doesn't come lightly. Many people work hard to ensure the freedom for us. It may stand for your personal commitment to God, but we still appreciate you as a person." The girls that narrate these videos appear to be very disinterested, reading what they're scripted to read out in a like monotone voice, not really seeming like they care about the actual contents of whatever they're reading, and also seeming somewhat disassociated and not there. It appears that these girls are all addicted to illicit substances, indicated both by their behaviors as well as the injuries and bruises that litter their bodies, with these injuries being particularly concentrated along their arms in areas where illicit substances are most commonly injected into people's circulatory systems. And these injuries on their arms are explained by these girls in some of the videos as spider bites, and do appear to look somewhat like spider bites. However, spider bites and injection points oftentimes can look very similar, and substance addicts often use spider bites as a way of explaining away those injuries that were actually caused by injections. These videos also have very bizarre thumbnails. I don't really know how to describe them. I'll just flash a few of them on screen right now. A lot of these videos are also subtitled in Chinese or titled in Chinese. And the reason for that is if you go to the email address linked to this YouTube channel, you can find that this actually ties back to a doctor named Dr. Edwin Zong, who is obviously Chinese, who owns a private medical clinic in California that focuses on addiction medication. He's a very shady person, and not just for his YouTube channel. Pharmacists that he bought medications from have said that he acted very suspicious, and the only news report that this guy can be found in is about one of his clients breaking into the building and attempting to physically assault him, to which he fired a firearm at the man in self-defense, resulting in the client being unalived. Some people have also said that it's suspicious that in this news report, when he's being interviewed, it's weird that he's wearing his still red fluid covered clothing, even like just after the incident. which I don't think is that weird. His arms were broken as a result of the attack, so it makes sense that he wouldn't want to change his shirt when it probably would hurt him a lot to do so. Like, this is, don't get me wrong, this guy is very suspicious, but this is not the best example of that. So, with how shady this man is, in combination with his YouTube channel, many people have theorized that he is actually selling illicit substances to the girls who appear in his videos in exchange for them appearing on his YouTube channel and narrating them. Some people have also theorized that he's holding them captive. I highly doubt this. They probably just seem disinterested in what they're reading because they're addicts who are just doing this to get another hit and might even be high when they're doing it. So, yeah, I don't think he's like physically making them do these videos by like holding them against their will, but I definitely do think he's coercing them into making these videos by selling them substances they're addicted to, which is still bad, just not as bad. Why doesn't he just like narrate these videos himself instead of going out of his way to try and get these girls to do it? Well, it's my personal theory that because he doesn't have any guys narrate these videos, despite the fact that he obviously does have male clients based on the news report, he's using their attractiveness to get people to click on and watch the videos. And as for why he makes these videos in the first place, I believe that it's nothing more than a way of promoting his weird pseudoscientific ideology and conspiracy theories. And any videos that are not related to those theories, like his videos about biology, are just a way of giving himself credit in the eyes of the viewer. Now, as a result of Nick Crowley covering his YouTube channel, or at least that's what I believe the main reason is, he's retitled his channel from Court K to Habitat Medicine, and he's deleted most of the videos that feature the girls in them. And now only 20 videos remain on his channel, which are just these obscure, weirdly edited collages, I guess you would call them, and like fan made music videos and tributes to Queen Elizabeth II, as well as his usual content centered around his usual subject matter, just no longer with any narrators. CoComelon is the third most subscribed YouTube channel. Why the hell is this all the way on the 6th tier? Also, this entry was originally CoComelon is the second most subscribed YouTube channel, but that has since become outdated since this iceberg was created. Though it's not as well known about as the PewDiePie vs. T-Series ordeal, there was a period of time where PewDiePie and CoComelon were competing in terms of who had more subscribers. PewDiePie didn't just make it into a big deal like he did with PewDiePie vs. T-Series because of how many controversies spawned out of PewDiePie vs. T-Series. And eventually, PewDiePie lost and CoComelon surpassed him in subscribers, becoming the second most subscribed channel on all of YouTube. Though fairly recently, MrBeast surpassed CoComelon in subscribers and took their place. As of now, PewDiePie is the 6th most subscribed YouTube channel with 111 million subscribers. Kids Diana Show is number 5 with 115 million subscribers. Sony Entertainment Television India is number 4 with 164 million subscribers. CoComelon is number 3 with 167 million subscribers. MrBeast is number 2 with 206 million subscribers. And T-Series is still number 1 with 252 million subscribers. Oh yeah, and CoComelon is like a shitty kids nursery rhyme channel for those who don't know. A Furry Rebirthing / beeblefoxx. beeblefoxx was a disturbing YouTube channel that only uploaded 4 videos. In the first of these videos, he plays GTA San Andreas, but he talks about how much he likes ascribing backstories to random NPCs, and he ascribes one of the NPCs the backstory of being a man named Jesse, who stole his girlfriend. Then he pauses the video game, and as he does so, he zooms the camera out to reveal that he's in a room littered with pictures of this girl that he's stalking. And he shows a picture of this girl with a man who he says is hypothetically what Jesse would look like if he was real. He then resumes the game, unalives Jesse, and then gets mad when the police arrest him, saying that he was doing the world a favor. In the second video, he teaches the viewers how to make a homemade fleshlight, and tapes an image of a nude woman on top of it, but then cuts out the face of the girl he's stalking from a photo and tapes her face on top of the nude woman's. In the third video, he purchases a daughter, the daughter in question being a pleasure doll. As he unboxes the pleasure doll, he moves her arm and hand towards his crotch and then tells her that she can't be doing that because she's supposed to be his daughter and that's wrong. Then he falls asleep and he wakes up to see his daughter now at a typewriter with a message on it saying that she wants soda. And he says that he can't get any soda because someone is going to be mad at him, and this someone is never brought up again. He then goes back to sleep, wakes up, and finds her surrounded by soda cans and freaks out before the video ends. The final video he uploaded is the one he's most well known for, that being a furry rebirthing. In this video, he cuts his daughter's limbs off with a chainsaw, saying that she needs to be reborn as part of an American Indian ritual. It then cuts to his daughter's head sewn onto a headless dog stuffed animal as he says hi to a real life forum in which people share very bad videos of animals of a nature that I'm sure you can guess based on the context of the rest of his channel, and a distorted piano melody alongside a slowed down vocal cover of Creep by Radiohead plays in the background as beeblefoxx continues filming his daughter while creepily whispering the lyrics to the song as it plays in the background. And then the video finally ends with it cutting to two furries doing the deed with one another, which very obviously is not included in any of the re-uploads of the video. There are supposedly more videos that beeblefoxx has made on his Vimeo account, but there doesn't really appear to be much archive of any of them, and so it's mostly just hearsay. That's the correct context to use the word hearsay, right? Am I wrong there? Now, he names the girl that he's stalking as well as his daughter Orange. And if you look at the YouTube channels he's subscribed to, one of them is called Orange Citrus. And the Orange Citrus confirmed that when she was a teenager, she met up with beeblefoxx, and the two of them tried to create an ARG centered around the persona of beeblefoxx stalking her. However, if the videos weren't enough of a red flag, beeblefoxx is a really creepy and disgusting person and groomed both Orange Citrus. He made multiple other videos in addition to these four, but most of these videos were uploaded to other sites and have been deleted, and re-uploads of them are hard to find. Now, throughout these videos, he repeatedly mentions someone named Orange. It's who he refers to the girl that he's stalking as well as what he names his daughter. And if you look at the channels he's following, one of them is a channel called The Orange Citrus. The Orange Citrus confirmed that beeblefoxx's entire channel was part of an ARG the two of them were creating with one another. However, she also said that she first met beeblefoxx when she was underage and he was not, and that beeblefoxx essentially groomed her into partaking in this ARG and using this ARG as a means of expressing his sick, twisted fantasies about her. She also alleges that he groomed multiple other victims on a website called Tiny Chat, and even went so far as to create cheese pizza of some of his victims. While she doesn't give details about many of the other victims, she does say that beeblefoxx stalked her, coerced her into making erotic content for him, and worst of all, in some of his deleted videos, created animated videos of a model meant to represent her doing the deed with Jessie. And unfortunately, despite all of this, the worst punishment he got for his heinous actions was getting his YouTube channel deleted. If you want more information on beeblefoxx and how to stop him, then you should go to the Orange Citrus's channel for more information about him. High on Life Waterfall Passings. High on Life was a YouTube channel collectively owned by a group of people who were all daredevils and would record themselves doing various extreme stunts, constantly trying to one-up one another for views. For one of these stunts, 3 of the members of High on Life, Reichler Gamble, Alexi Liak, and Megan Scraper, all climbed up Shannon Falls in Canada. They climbed on a very dangerous path that's so dangerous that at some points there isn't even really a trail and you just have to grab onto rope that the people who run the park had to install into the rocks of the trail so that you can actually traverse it safely. And this trail passed by several pools along the waterfall. The three of them swam in one of these pools, but one of the members fell off the edge of the pool where it connected to the rest of the waterfall. The other two ran in to try and rescue her and ended up falling down with her, and all three of them sadly passed away. This caused the YouTube channel to receive a lot of criticism for encouraging these highly dangerous stunts. And High on Life posted a sort of like memorial video on the situation in which they expressed grief at the loss of the three. However, this video was received poorly because at one part they tell people to get out of their comfort zones and stop looking for reasons not to, which is just incredibly tone deaf to the situation. GasKings. GasKings was a pair of YouTubers who shared a channel named Ray King and Anthony Locke. Their content centered around cars, and as such, they owned a lot of cars for the purposes of these videos, and to purchase these cars and fund their channel, they scammed people. Anthony created a website which, if you invested your pension retirement fund into it, would take 50% of that fund and donate it to like some ecological activist organization that Anthony completely made up in exchange for giving the other 50% to you prematurely. The two ended up making $1.2 million from this scam. However, the law eventually caught up with them. Anthony was charged with 23 counts of fraud by false representation and 3 counts of money laundering, which resulted in a 5-year prison sentence, while Ray King, due to being less involved in the scam than Anthony, was only charged for 14 counts of fraud by false representation and only given a 3-year prison sentence. GasKings, more like Ass Kings, am I right? Cave of Shadows / NS0MNBY, which I'm just gonna call Insombi for short. Cave of Shadows is both the name of an ARG as well as the main YouTube channel associated with that ARG. Because of this, the ARG is also sometimes referred to as the system to differentiate the two and not cause confusion, with the system being the name of the main villains of the ARG. The best way I could describe the content on Cave of Shadows is it's sort of like a proto-Local 58. The videos are portrayed as archives of some sort of anomalous broadcasting network, with segments that start off normal but then become more disturbing as they go on. Except unlike Local 58, there are multiple segments per video, or per broadcast, and many of these segments recur throughout the videos. And also, unlike Local 58, it has no budget. Some of the segments will be pretty mundane, just with a random spooky message at the end, like the weather report sections often are. Sometimes they just won't even relate to the ARG at all and will just be there for filler. And other times they're just littered with ciphers relating to other aspects of the ARG. One of my personal favorite segments is the Mr. Giraffe show, where because they wanted to do like that whole corrupted kid show idea, but because they didn't really have a budget, they just used like a giraffe hand puppet. And in each of the episodes, the giraffe is doing something mundane, but then he makes a fatal mistake, like playing with scissors or not watching out for strangers, and he gets unalived. And then they just leave the segment on a lingering shot of Mr. Giraffe's unalived body for just way too long. It's almost comical for how long the shot lingers. A lot of these ciphers on this YouTube channel link to this game that you can download, which is like a point-and-click game where you move through various different areas that appeared earlier in the Cave of Shadow videos, and all these images look very liminal, which I have to say, for this ARG feels kind of ahead of its time, because it came out in 2015, before both analog horror and liminal spaces were popular, and yet the ARG manages to incorporate both of those as elements into it, which is pretty neat. But at the end of the game, you drop a dice down a sewer grate, and then you have to enter a password, and various different things happen depending on what password you enter. And there's a bunch of different passwords you can find from deciphering the 70 trillion codes in the videos. It should be noted that the name of this channel, The Cave of Shadows, refers to this allegorical story written by Plato. I would explain, but I don't really think it's that relevant to this YouTube channel, to be honest. I mean, it clearly has something to do with the ARG, I'm just not sure what. Yeah, unfortunately, like many other ARGs I've already talked about on this Iceberg, The Cave of Shadows ARG was never completed before it was, I guess you'd say, cancelled, and I'll get more into why in a minute. So, while Cave of Shadows is the main YouTube channel associated with the ARG of the same name, there are 3 other YouTube channels that are also involved in it. The first of these channels is Elias Doyle. This channel was made to look like just another player of the ARG, and when the players of the ARG uncovered an address via the codes in Cave of Shadows, Elias Doyle went to that address and found a package. So he basically existed as a way of allowing the audience of these videos to observe physical items that were important for completing the puzzles of the ARG without actually having to physically go out to a location and retrieve those puzzles. Though Elias then later became more heavily incorporated into the channel when he got, like, stalked by the system. Which, by the way, I have no idea what the system actually is. Again, ARG never finished, so that was kind of a loose thread that never got answered. And after the ARG ended in 2015, the creators of the ARG tried to sort of reboot it 2 years later, and then decided not to. They, like, chickened out, I guess, calling it permanently incomplete. And Elias Doyle was the center of this revival of the ARG, or Act 2 as they called it. The second channel related to the ARG is Awake. This channel is literally just a bunch of codes and ciphers with no, like, content that these ciphers are imprinted into, just literal ciphers that you have to decode and nothing else. And they all more or less say the same thing, which is just this, ooh, your reality is wrong, everything you know is a lie message that anyone who's seen an ARG before has seen like 700 times. This part of the ARG was so bad that it made Scare Theater not cover any ARGs ever again after talking about it. And the Awake channel has since been hacked and deleted. The final channel is the most controversial, nnib. This channel was also mostly just codes and ciphers, except actually linking back to the main ARG instead of just being stupid messages, and actually accompanied by at least mildly unnerving footage of just a guy walking through the forest and staring out of his windows, instead of being accompanied by nothing like on the Awake channel. Unfortunately, this is again where the controversy comes from and why this ARG was shut down. Some of the codes and information on this channel link to a child named Michael Dunahee who went missing in real life, and following this, the ARG seems to imply that Michael has some sort of connection to Elias Doyle and might have actually survived, and that the person who kidnapped or unalived Michael is running the Cave of Shadows YouTube channel, which is, needless to say, extremely gross and should not have been in the YouTube channel at all, and even the creators of Cave of Shadows expressed regret at including this in the ARG. And either due to controversy that this caused or due to guilt, almost every video on nnib was either privated or deleted. The entirety of the Awake YouTube channel was also deleted later, though this was due to the channel being hacked. There was also some minor backlash against the channel because they were just really desperate to be covered by like a popular horror YouTuber, with them actively messaging both Scare Theater and Nightmind and asking them to cover the ARG, and even using Scare Theater Nightmind as a password and part of the ARG. Which, I mean, hey, it worked. Scare Theater did cover it, but Nightmind did not. In fact, Nightmind then developed a policy saying that no one could request to have their videos covered by him, almost solely because of Cave of Shadows. And it was a combination of this begging, the use of a real missing child's case, and just how tedious solving all of the various ciphers just to show the same message became that the ARG was ultimately abandoned. Though it should be noted that all of the creators of this ARG were in high school or really young and just got out of high school before making the ARG. So the overall quality of Cave of Shadows and the fact that it failed isn't that surprising. But after Cave of Shadows failed, the creators didn't actually give up. Most of them are still working on various projects to this day, with the most notable of these being Adrian Elliott, who has created the Sun Vanished ARG. YouTube search for every letter of the keyboard typed from Q to M in sequence. or as it would be pronounced, qwertyuiopasdfghjklzxcvbnm. Speaking from personal experience here, sometimes when people get bored, like in school or something, they will type the entirety of the keyboard out into either the Google or YouTube search bar and then just search it. Sometimes they'll also then type the keyboard in reverse or type the keyboard out by column rather than row. I know I used to do that a lot in school, but because of this, various small YouTube channels have just put out random shit posts that are titled with that whole jumbled mess of letters, most of which have nothing to do with the actual search term. Not that I'd really know how you'd make a video relate to that search term in any way other than just trying to pronounce it. Most of these shit posts don't appear to be anything sinister or have any greater meaning. Just someone created a shit post and they didn't know what to title it, so they just typed out the entire keyboard. But that being said, a couple of these are ElsaGate videos because, as you can imagine, the main people who are going to be searching the keyboard are children. Jared Lee Loughner, G-Word School Rant video. On January 8th, 2011, Jared Lee Loughner attempted to unalive Arizona Senator Gabby Gilfords using a firearm. She thankfully survived, albeit heavily injured, but 6 other people were unalived and 13 more were injured. Jared was eventually arrested, putting an end to the attempt on the representative's life. This sparked an investigation into who he was and why he wanted to unalive her in the first place. It was determined that he had paranoid schizophrenia, and after his girlfriend broke up with him in high school, he became addicted to a bunch of different illicit substances, which combined with the paranoid schizophrenia had horrendous effects on his mental health, with many people who knew him noting that his personality drastically changed after he started using these substances. People discovered that Jared also had a YouTube channel where he uploaded just like insane conspiratorial rants that mashed together so many different conspiracy theories that none of it coherently flows together into any logistical worldview, with some of the most notable of these theories being his distrust of government and belief that the world was going to end in 2012. Some things that do stay consistent is that he really hates religion, and he wants to control people's belief in religion to make himself a god or vice versa. Again, very hard to tell because of just how little sense any of this makes. And right before he actually made the attempt on the representative's life, he uploaded a video in which he walked around his old university, talking about how they were secretly committing some kind of G-word. They were fighting in a secret war. They were trying to replace the global currency with something new, and he wanted to stop them and create his own currency. Again, most of it is very indecipherable, but unfortunately no one paid attention to any of these videos before it was too late. While held in custody, he was forced to take antipsychotic medications, which resulted in his mental state greatly improving, after which he expressed great remorse for what he had done, and pleaded guilty to all charges, resulting in him receiving 7 life sentences and 140 years in prison without parole. Yeah, I don't know why multiple life sentences is a thing. I don't get that. Why do YouTube views freeze at 301? I already kind of talked about this video back in the 3rd tier when I talked about the 301 views phenomenon on its own, but I see no harm in covering it again. This is a YouTube video created by Numberphile, where he explains the 301 views phenomenon and why it happens in the first place, and he even gets a technician from YouTube to help explain it. This video is extremely popular, and as of January 2021, has over 15.1 million views. So YouTube, as an Easter egg, decided to change the view count of this video and this video alone to always show that the video has 301 views, regardless of how many views the video actually has, a statistic which only Numberphile can see, and in the description of the video, he shows how many views the video actually has, routinely updating it, with the last update being in January 2021. Tower Dog Leaks. Tower Dog, or Dog Tower, was an anonymous Twitter user who claimed to be a big YouTuber using this as an alternate account so that YouTube wouldn't punish him for exposing this, who claims to have a friend that worked for a third-party company hired by YouTube to demonetize YouTube videos that were in need of manual review. They also showed screenshots of a checklist allegedly given to their friend, which basically stated what types of content can and can't be demonetized. In addition to this, Tower Dog also claimed that there was a secret meeting between heads of YouTube and several large YouTubers, and considering this is YouTube's definition of large YouTuber, that could also include celebrities that just happen to have YouTube channels. With the purpose of this meeting being the discussion of how to remove problematic creators that still make YouTube a lot of money and that it would be disastrous to remove all at once, such as Leafy is here and Keemstar. Again, all of this is alleged, so take it with a grain of salt. And in my personal opinion, that whole secret meeting thing does seem a little bit more far-fetched than the demonetization leaks. The YouTube user bubble. This refers to a 3-year period from 2007 to 2009, during which YouTube became significantly more well known in mainstream media, and as such, its value in the global economy heavily increased. With the average YouTube channel that had at least 150,000 subscribers, generating a total of $189,000 during that period, and with YouTube's value on the stock market increasing to $10 million. The economic bubble eventually collapsed due to both the mainstream media losing interest in YouTube, seeing it as this sort of fad that had slowly faded away, as well as YouTube making the really stupid decision to terminate all inactive accounts, which severely crippled the subscriber bases of many small YouTube channels, as channels with less than 100,000 subscribers reported a loss of nearly 10% of their entire subscriber body. And to quote this Wikipedia article I found on this event, because I'm gonna be honest, I don't really understand it enough to feel like I can adequately summarize it. Despite the plummet, due to most of the revenue YouTube generated at the time was based on potential, neither YouTube nor Google saw a significant loss of capital. Then in 2012, YouTube managed to regain a lot of the wealth it had lost after the collapse of the bubble, as they now started taking advertisement deals with various mainstream media companies and celebrities, and they managed to save the platform from going into obscurity in the process. I mean, obviously, them taking these advertising deals wasn't the only reason, but it is one of the main ones. GMod ARGs. This one's pretty self-explanatory. The game GMod is very nostalgic to many people, and so recently, several YouTubers have created ARGs using GMod, often under the guise of them re-uploading videos that they made playing on GMod when they were kids, but with some dark, spooky ARG twist to it. Also, most of these are not actually ARGs, but on reality games. Can people just, use the right words to describe things, please? There is a very clear and obvious difference between the two. And there's a YouTube channel called Richter Overtime, which has an entire playlist where he covers various different Gmod ARGs. The most well-known and in-depth ARG appears to be one called Classic GM Videos. Also, there's one of these ARGs which is called Gunslinger Pro 2009, and it is really funny because the whole spooky thing about the ARG is that the video creator is trapping people's souls in the ragdolls he uses in the videos, which is just so funny. The fact that that is the horror concept that they're going with, I love that so much. And they managed to save the platform from going into obscurity in the process. I mean, obviously, them taking these advertising deals wasn't the only reason, but it is one of the main ones. Nitori has gone mad. Yay! Another Tauhao related entry, my favorite! So, Nitori is a character from Tauhao who, like many of the other characters, is based off of a creature from Japanese folklore, specifically a kappa, who are these frog, turtle, human hybrid creatures, and they really love cucumbers. So, someone made this music video called Just Drink Cucumber Flavored Beer. And it's just this cute animation music video where she sings in a cute voice, accompanied by an animation which both depict her drinking cucumber flavored beer and eating cucumbers, and presumably doing other stuff that I can't really tell what they are because I don't understand the lyrics, because, But there's one other thing about kappas I didn't mention. If they are unable to get a cucumber through any means, then they will resort to consuming human flesh instead. And so someone decided to make a parody of the music video, a sort of creepypasta-esque parody based off of this concept, called Please Take Your Time and Enjoy the Cucumber Flavor. However, with its title being in Japanese and with Touhou having a large English-speaking fanbase, this video was re-uploaded with the English title, Nitori Has Gone Mad. This version has the same song, but it also has some distorted voice talking over the lyrics of the song, and presumably talking about eating people. And the animation in the background is a direct parody of the Cucumber Beer music video, now with a creepy version of Nitori who has glowing eyes and a big mouth, and she's instead of eating cucumbers, she's eating people, and the step-by-step guide of how to eat cucumbers is replaced by one of how to eat people. And the parts of the video where other characters get annoyed at her for stealing their food are replaced with her eating the other characters. Ooh. And then at the end of the video, once the music video itself ends and it fades to black, she pops up one last time to sort of jump scare the viewers, and then it ends. For real this time.
Number 8, creepy anime video. Most things related to anime are meant to be cute, or at the very least sexual.
Self-game and warning for this entry. The Video Diaries of Ricardo Lopez. Ricardo Lopez, or as he's more commonly known as, the Bjork Stalker, was a man born in Uruguay who was obsessed with the Icelandic pop singer Bjork, and constantly fantasized about being in a relationship with her. When she began dating a black man, he became extremely upset, both because he wanted to be in a relationship with her, and also because he was racist. As he only ever referred to Bjork's boyfriend as the N-word, he became so upset by this that he spent months constructing an explosive device designed to spew acid, which he planned on mailing to Bjork. During his time constructing this, as well as the time leading up to his decision to begin making this, he filmed video diaries of himself, in which he records himself late at night, talking to no one but his camera, and exposing his innermost thoughts. In the last of these video diaries, recorded shortly after the explosive was sent, he sits upon a chair with his face painted over, listening to one of Bjork's songs as he holds a GUN up to the roof of his mouth, his breathing heavy and labored as he contemplates what he's about to do, until the song ends, and finally, he shouts one last incomprehensible word before a pop is heard, and he falls over to the ground, groaning, and the sound of fluids rushing, presumably his red bodily fluids, flowing out from his skull, can be heard. The video diaries were found shortly after this self-game end, and thanks in part to them being found, the explosive was stopped in Scotland Yard, though it most likely would have been anyways. There is a total of 18 hours worth of this video diary footage, of which 1 hour and 15 minutes, which does not include the self-game end, was compiled together by the Danish filmmaker Sami Saif in the film The Video Diaries of Ricardo Lopez. Surprisingly, despite the horrendous actions he attempted, many people, including Bjork herself, actually empathize with him. And I think the reason for this is because he wasn't some crazed, insane stalker doing this for reasons that don't really make sense, or out of pride, or out of lust, or anything like that. No, he did this because he was depressed. He had no friends, no family, and eventually no job. He believed all of humanity to be monsters, and himself to be even worse than most of them. He made it very clear that he definitely wanted to commit self-game end, and at first he was just holding off on it because he wanted to wait until his mother passed away, not wanting to hurt her, but eventually he just felt like he couldn't do it anymore, and so he decided to do it anyway, using the fact that she had given birth to him, which he believed to be evil, as an excuse for why he was able to hurt her. And he knew full well that his plan to blow up Bjork was evil, and that it probably wouldn't even work. He mostly just did it to feel like he had accomplished something before he went out, as well as to make his unalivement a sort of spectacle. And in a way, he did. Fake animal rescue. Videos of people rescuing various wild animals, namely really cute ones like turtles, cats, and dogs, oftentimes go viral, which in turn sparks several copycat channels which purposely put animals in danger to then quote-unquote rescue them from that danger and then profit off of the views. This trend first came to light when a YouTuber called the Turtle Guy, who has an entire channel centered around turtles, obviously, unearthed several YouTube channels all run by the same person who claimed to be rescuing turtles by carving barnacles off of them, when in reality they were just gluing rocks that looked like barnacles onto freshwater turtles, scraping them off, and then throwing the turtles back in the water. Which, first of all, obviously freshwater turtles cannot get barnacles because barnacles do not exist in freshwater, but second of all, turtles have nerve endings in their shells, and barnacles being scraped off a turtle can be harmful, so by applying these fake barnacles and scraping them off for no reason, they're effectively just harming the turtle for views. And what's worse is that this is the more tame, like on the more tame side of these animal rescue videos. In other animal rescue videos, ones often featuring small mammals like cats and dogs, the YouTubers will let the dogs fight with venomous snakes, cover them in pits of oil to the point of nearly drowning them, throwing them in rivers, breaking their legs, zip tying them, and sometimes even just straight up unaliving these animals to make it seem like some sad animal death that they can then profit off of. And if you're wondering how any of this shit is legal, it's because these channels mostly originate from Vietnam, a country which has basically little to no animal rights whatsoever, or at least did until 2021. YouTube, being the piece of shit that it is, refused to do anything about most of these channels, at least at first. While YouTube has unfortunately not made any new policy changes to combat these types of channels, many of them have been deleted by nature of them being mass reported after this whole phenomenon was exposed. And even better, with new anti-animal abuse laws being created in Vietnam, it will be significantly harder for Vietnamese channels to profit off of this type of video content in the future. That being said, I'm sure that there is at least one other country where there are little to no animal abuse laws, and where this kind of content can still be performed. I don't really want to research every single country's laws to know if one of those countries exists. That being said, it is definitely still possible that these fake animal rescue videos exist in some way. However, they are not as prevalent as they once were. But, to be safe, if you ever encounter a animal rescue video, especially one on YouTube Shorts, use your critical thinking skills, try to think about whether this is something that could realistically happen, and look at the YouTube channel to see if they're using the same animal multiple times, or if they're rescuing animals from the same situations multiple times, or rescuing animals an exorbitant number of times that wouldn't realistically happen. Horned Grandma. This is a comedic video showing an image of an old woman's head who has a cutaneous horn on its forehead. A cutaneous horn being a very rare type of skin tumor in which a human grows a literal horn out of some part of their body made of keratin, though they look more like disorganized geometrical shapes than they do neat animalistic horns. The image of Horned Grandma is edited to make it look like she's talking, as a distorted voice speaks to presumably the viewer and asks them to give her a kiss, and then asks if they're scared of her horn, to which she becomes offended that they're scared, and then asks if they want cookies. The video has some sort of like a VHS filter applied to it that makes it look like the film reel is being decimated, and there's also really loud, distorted noises in the background, both of which make the video feel either really disturbing or comedic in an absurd way depending on how you view it.
Don't be scared of Grandma's old horny horn. If it weren't for this horn, you wouldn't have been born.
R-word warning for this entry. M is bad. This is a Super Mario Bros. Pixel animation. Yeah, I bet that's exactly what you expected me to say after R-word warning. It starts off pretty normal with all of the various Mario characters partying at Princess Peach's castle. There's some sex jokes here and there, and eventually Luigi starts running through the hallway. He slips on a banana peel and Mario, picks him up and helps him up. The party continues. There's an outdated reference to Numa Numa, but then Mario suddenly starts lusting after Luigi for seemingly no reason. Luigi runs away, Mario runs after him, and once again Luigi slips on a banana peel. Except this time, when Mario catches up, Mario strips him and then R-words him. Now obviously this is a YouTube animation, and a pixelated one at that, so it doesn't actually show it. Rather, it shows various enemies from Mario levels performing their normal behavior as a sort of metaphor for what is happening, and then it cuts back to Luigi now heavily injured as a result, and all of the other Mario characters looking shocked. It then cuts to Luigi in a hospital bed recovering, and he has a nightmare about Mario. Luigi then wakes up and gets out of bed determined to hunt down Mario and get revenge. He meets some sort of weapons dealer, but because of how low quality the JPEG of them is, and because I don't recognize their voice lines, I'm not sure who it is, but I'm pretty sure they're from some game. And he buys a bunch of weaponry from them. Luigi then attempts to hunt down Mario and shoot him using his many different weapons, but misses every single shot. At one part, there's a Duck Hunt reference where Luigi misses, and so the Duck Hunt dog pops out and laughs at him, but then he shoots the Duck Hunt dog, and then the Duck Hunt bird comes out and laughs holding the unalived body of the Duck Hunt dog. I thought that was kind of funny. But anyway, Luigi then continues chasing down Mario. He accidentally enters a gay bar at one point, and then eventually he finally catches up to Mario, but now he's lost all of his weapons, and the two of them have this choreographed action battle. Luigi accidentally unalives Sonic, and eventually the battle ends with Mario firing at Luigi and unaliving him. Mario then mourns the unalivement of his brother, and then at the end of the animation we're shown an evil Mario next to the real Mario, implying that I guess the Mario that R-worded Luigi was actually evil Mario. And so this whole thing happened for no reason. While the video was definitely intended to be comedic in a dark comedy style, a lot of kids who didn't really understand what R-word was saw this at a really young age. So from their perspective, Luigi just kind of tried to unalive Mario for seemingly no reason, and they were completely oblivious to both the R-wording as well as the numerous sex jokes throughout the video. And then they all came back to the comment section years later and were like, "Oh, that's what it was about." Oh. Surgery videos. This is exactly what it says. There are videos on YouTube of people just performing surgeries. If you're wondering why such graphic content is allowed on YouTube, the reason is because, well, it's educational. Surgeons have to watch these videos to be better at surgery themselves and memorize what exactly to do in the case of certain procedures, and it's a lot more helpful than animations of what to do. That being said, all of these videos are still age restricted and, due to their nature, are pretty much blacklisted from appearing in recommended videos or on the main homepage. And if you want to find one, you're probably going to have to directly search for it or use a link to get to it. And I challenge any males in the audience that are over the age of 18, so I don't get in trouble, to watch the testicular torsion surgery video. We got a creepy stalker. Security camera footage. As the title suggests, this video is mostly a recording taken from the personal security camera in front of the house of the uploader. It shows a man who drives up to their house, stays there for a couple minutes, and then drives away, and over the next several days he continues doing this over and over, occasionally seemingly harassing the uploader's wife and asking for help driving his car or writing messages saying that he can't drive his car and needs help. Following the upload of this video, the YouTube channel that uploaded it, That Man in Black, created 2 update videos, in which they document another person driving by their house behaving very similarly at night, though because of the darkness they're unable to see this person and if it's the same person or not, and every time this happens, they find bottles of urine in their yard the next morning. Many commenters told him that he should call the cops about it, and eventually, after a couple months, he finally did. He then made a final update in which he relayed to his audience what the police had told him, which was that the original stalker seen in the first video was nothing more than an old man with dementia, but they also said that the man had sold his car before the urine stalker started appearing at their house. So the urine stalker was most likely some prankster who had seen the first video, recognized the house, and decided to prank them. If it seems a little too weird and coincidental that a man who just happened to be living in the same town as that man in black, and also happened to see the original stalker video, which only has 60,000 views, and recognized the house and decided to prank them, if you notice here in the video, there's trees surrounding their house. And in many of the other videos on his channel, there are also trees, and very thick forests at that, meaning that he definitely doesn't live in the suburbs, and he very likely lives in some sort of small town, likely in the southern regions of America. Adding on to this theory is the fact that most of the videos on his channel promote conservative and pro-firearm ideologies, and people who live in small towns, particularly in the South, are much more likely to believe in these ideologies in America. So the idea of someone from that town happening to know him and happening to see the video and deciding to prank him doesn't seem too unrealistic depending on how many people live in that small town. Uncle Chuck. This is a video showing a man who has recently had an orbital exurantation performed on him, which is a type of surgery to remove an eyeball as well as all of the surrounding tissues, including the eyelid, ocular muscles, and ocular nerve. This is usually performed to remove skin or eye cancer around that area. In some cases, more extreme cases, a large crater can be left in the head as a result of the surgery, so large in fact that it can intercept the nasal cavity, and this is the case with Uncle Chuck. Most of the comment section just talks about how sweet and nice of a man Uncle Chuck is, and the creator of the video has even thanked people for watching as he never expected it to get as many views as it did. The video currently has 3.3 million views, which can most likely be attributed to the fact that Uncle Chuck's face is in the thumbnail and many people probably clicked it out of morbid curiosity. Also because of, I guess, how graphic his face is, YouTube decided to blacklist the video, so you can't directly find it from searching it on YouTube. You have to use Google for that. So when I initially searched for Uncle Chuck, a video of fucking Sonic the Hedgehog, a Sonic the Hedgehog character came up. And for a second, I actually thought the creator of the Iceberg was just trolling with me. But no, it's referring to this video, probably. Meesha Booh. This was the online alias of a woman named Meesha Ridge, who was one of the first DIY fashion YouTubers to get big. She had been dating a man named Demishlo Green in the past, but eventually broke up with him because her daughter said that he was abusive towards her, and she lived her life separate of him for 10 years, having 2 more kids in that time. And then, one day, all of a sudden, Demishlo, who was apparently still obsessed with and angry at Meesha, snuck into her house and unalived her with a firearm. Thankfully, he didn't hurt any of the children, though. He then turned himself in for parole violation, and he was eventually sentenced to 75 years in prison without possibility of parole. Her YouTube channel now lies dormant, with the last video uploaded to it being uploaded mere hours before her untimely fate. Ensemble of Christ the Savior and Crude Mother Earth are icons. Surprisingly, the ensemble of Kcriss the Savior and Crude Mother Earth is not a cult, but rather a hardcore Russian band, with Our Icons being their most well-known song. The instrumentation in the background of this song is, it's fine, whatever. A little generic, but not bad. But then you listen to the vocals. They're definitely an acquired taste. And the lyrics of this song, when translated to English, are interesting to say the least. Ignoring the chorus, which is just "Our icons are the most beautiful," followed by that pam 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 sound, the lyrics are as follows: "Gold-plated icons attract the pilgrims, and people are clean and washed. Go into the arms of destiny from the sauna. Warm, elegant icons to heal the souls of the Russians, and dearest Jesuses are calling to the lay people. Komelon. Icons hang on nails with the blessings of the saints, and our beloved churches is always a way for young a non-Russian unbaptized stare and choke with saliva, scraping the concrete mixer and crying over their destiny." The next 4 lines are just puns involving the Russian word for Jews, which is completely lost in translation. Then, "Saints are smiling from the heavens. Sainteth are happily watching as Russia is being reborn, and temples shine with gold. Saints are waving to us from the skies, and the president in the Kremlin bunker dictates a righteous law. Our president is better than the leader of Germany from 1939 to 1945 because he is kind. Pam, 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 pam. The most favorite, I would like to have sex with him. We have the cheapest icons in Faviere. I was lucky I live there, where the icons are the cheapest. On the waterfront, Athenius it looks like a location in Russia. I have already plastered all bathroom and the toilet. I have a joint, WC. Clearly, some amount of its original meaning is lost in translation in some way, but I genuinely have no idea what the fuck this song is about. The description of the English translation of this song does also specify that the band members focus on being politically incorrect, hence why they chose such a controversial band name. And one of the members of this band even goes by the name of the German leader I mentioned before. So it's quite possible that the lyrics of this song are just offensive for the sake of being offensive. The creepiest thing about this video is easily the music video associated with the song and not the song itself. It features the main singer dressed up as an old hag, which I'm going to assume is the Baba Yaga, because it's the only piece of Russian culture I know that relates to old women in some way. And I guess him dressing as this old woman is the reason for why the vocals of this song sound the way that they do. It still doesn't sound good though. The music video is mostly in black and white and or recorded at night. There's also some disturbing imagery mixed in there, like the Baba Yaga dancing around, sucking on a cross. There's this other guy that wears cloths over his head and is not wearing any shirt, and he dances around while wielding GUNs. There's a part where they point a GUN at a baby. There's a part where they pull this metal hook up through a kid's mouth. So on and so forth. Mr. Sleepy People / eyeball fetish community. Mr. Sleepy People was a YouTuber who would record videos of women who were sleeping and oftentimes either drunk or on substances, and from there he would lift open their eyelids and play with their eyeballs, both with his fingers and, disgustingly enough, with his tongue. And unfortunately, he wasn't the only YouTube channel who did this. There was an entire community of these things that would both make these videos as well as exchange videos with one another privately, with the private videos quite possibly being far more graphic and more illegal than the main public videos they made. They also compiled together playlists of videos featuring women sleeping, even if those videos didn't involve their eyeball fetishes at all. Like, just straight up videos of women sleeping with nothing else. And they would even go so far as to include videos of children sleeping, and even babies. These playlists would not only feature videos of sleeping women, but also would oftentimes feature videos of unalived women or hypnotized women as well. And if you're wondering how unalived women are allowed on YouTube, videos of them were mostly in the form of documentaries about wars. Now, Nick Crowley, who exposed this whole community, believed that the people who watch these videos just generally have like a fetish for women who are unable to control their bodies in some way. And while I think that is possible, I think it's more likely that most of the people who watch these playlists are only attracted to one of those three things, whether it be sleeping women, hypnotized women, or unalived women, but they all share the same eyeball fetish, and so all utilize the same playlists. Thankfully, after Nick Crowley's video was made, Mr. Sleepy People was banned from YouTube, and since then, his fanbase has been mass reporting these eyeball fetish channels. However, unfortunately, a lot of them are still active on the platform, with the worst part about this being the fact that a lot of these channels weren't even uploading content made specifically for fetishistic purposes, and were just re-uploading or making playlists of videos of women sleeping that were completely innocent. So there isn't really anything YouTube can do to stop those channels, as it technically doesn't violate YouTube's TOS. And it should be noted that while most of the videos that fall under this category are of women, there are a small number of them that focus on men instead. And there is one particularly disgusting channel that sexualizes homeless men. Experiments in the Revival of Organisms. This was a short film created in 1940 by the Soviet Union to be shown to American scientists. The film details a device which essentially acts as an artificial cardiovascular system, one which can revive a mammal's body or part of a mammal's body if the circulatory flow to it becomes cut off. They first demonstrate this device by attaching it to a severed dog head, which they manage to restore the circulatory flow to enough that it is able to remain alive for several hours before ultimately passing, and is even able to respond to external stimuli to some extent during this time. They then take a healthy, living dog with no missing body parts, and they drain enough of its red liquids that its heartbeat completely stops. They then attach the device to it and restore its circulatory system through that. And after a few hours of being hooked up to the machine, not only is it kept alive, but its heartbeat is eventually restarted, and the dogs were able to live normal, healthy dog lives after that. Now, these experiments were real and were actually performed. Whether you believe in the results of these experiments is up to you. Personally, I believe that they were probably overstated in some way, even if they did actually happen. Like, the dog head probably didn't survive for hours. It probably failed after a couple minutes. And I also believe that while the dogs might have been revived, so to say, I highly doubt that they didn't live the rest of their lives without much complications, and the rest of their lives were probably at least somewhat shorter. That being said, the visuals of this short film are completely made up. This film was made in 1940. Filming medical procedures was not exactly commonplace, so this film is actually a recreation of these experiments and not footage of the actual experiments themselves. And it's very obvious to see at some points, namely with the severed dog head, which is very clearly just a dog sticking its head through like a tablecloth or something. Also, did you know that Neil Cicerega, aka Lemon Demon, almost named his song Lifetime Achievement Award after this short film? And for the final entry on the first part of the 6th tier of the deepest slash massive YouTube iceberg, we have Artem Lebedev, which is the alias and YouTube channel name of the Russian pop singer whose actual name is Zilium Bakayev. He was a rising star, and at the peak of his popularity, he went on a trip to Chechnya to visit his sister for her wedding. During this trip, though, he went missing, with eyewitnesses saying that the last time they saw him, he was being escorted by two soldiers into an armed military vehicle and was then escorted away, never to be seen again. That was until a YouTube channel with his Artem Lebedev alias was created several months later, and on this YouTube channel, he uploaded a couple videos from an apartment building that looked architecturally similar to the buildings in Chechnya, though he claimed that it was in Germany, and it had Russian furniture and Russian energy drink cans within it. Again, despite the fact that he claimed that he was in Germany. And he basically said, hey, everything's fine. I'm gonna be out here soon. Nothing bad's happening. And I actually quit being a pop star because it was too stressful. And needless to say, nobody bought it. He has never been seen since those videos. What most likely happened was he was gay. And in Russia, being gay is not exactly a favorable thing to be. And Chechnyan authorities had been known to essentially kidnap gay people and force them to go to concentration camps, or just straight up unalive them. And so that's probably, sadly, what happened to Zilim Bakayev. And it's also worth noting that the YouTube channel, designed to be like, oh, he's actually okay, guys, was created during a massive pro-gay protest around Russia and Chechnya and nearby areas. Also, side note, his YouTube channel's name is like one letter off from the name of a semi-famous Russian celebrity that's been to every country, so it is a little bit hard to find as a result. Alright, that was every entry in part 1 of tier 6, the researcher tier, of the massive slash deepest YouTube iceberg. As usual, if I got anything wrong, leave a comment about it. That's it. Leave a like, subscribe. Bye. I don't know how to do outros.